Cult of the Lamb is likely not what you think it is. While the flashy roguelike action has drawn a lot of comparisons to Hades, it's not really the crux of the game. At its core, developer Massive Monster's new ultra-cute cult simulator is just that, a simulation. Players will spend around 75% of its 14-hour runtime playing a masterfully designed city builder management sim with bursts in between of mediocre roguelike action that far outstays its welcome, weighted down and poorly paced progression systems. In Cult of the Lamb, you'll become a lamb sent to slaughter in the name of a false god. On your way to hell, you're rescued by a demon called the One Who Waits, who has been shackled between the surface world and Inferno. In exchange for sending you back to the world above with its remaining power, it tasks the lamb with creating a cult in its name, in the name of the Red Crown. There are 4 bishops who serve as the bosses that the lamb must defeat while managing their cult compound to free the One Who Waits from its demonic chains. I first want to speak about the thing that draws the most attention in Cult of the Lamb, the art style. It's beautiful, it's colorful, it's easy to distinguish in the heat of combat, and most importantly, it's consistent. Even during the garish occult rituals and demonic summonings, the presentation of Cult of the Lamb never ever wavers. The artists and animators are 110% dedicated to making this the most adorable satanic ritual you've ever experienced, and do not back down. The contrast of the subject matter and art style is not just something to catch players' eyes, it's an aesthetic decision that was made with purpose. As I mentioned previously, Cult of the Lamb is a management sim supported by small chunks of roguelike action. You'd be forgiven for thinking the management part is secondary based on the trailers, but really the game is about growing your cult and making them more powerful, while the runs through the 4 procedurally generated biomes serve to help you gather followers and materials for building. Each run is actually quite short, depending on what you run into. I had some that were as quick as 3 minutes, with the longest being about 10. Cult of the Lamb, like any good management sim, is made up of a dozen interlocking systems, each one both feeding and being dependent on several others. As the game progresses and your cult expands, you'll be able to automate these processes so you can focus on more high-level planning. It very much has the cadence of a city builder RTS like the Tycoon games, but on a much smaller and more palpable scale for newcomers to the genre. After inducting your first few cultists, those are freebies, you'll need to construct your most important structures, a shrine and a temple. The shrine is the beating heart of your cult, and is where your followers will worship you so you can gain power over the course of your journey. The temple is the brain, where you will make the decisions that affect your followers, tell them how to live their lives, dictate their eating, sleeping, and working schedules, and more. From there, you'll branch out and need to collect rocks, wood, grass, flowers, seeds, food, and a variety of other materials so your cult can thrive. There's 3 meters you're trying to maintain: loyalty, hunger, and sickness. If your loyalty depletes, your followers will revolt and declare you a false prophet, leaving the camp. If your hunger depletes, your followers will begin to starve and die. Likewise, if the sickness meter hits 0, disease will begin to spread and followers will be similarly snuffed out. There are nearly 24 systems running in the camp by the time it's operational, and it's frankly mind-blowing that they all work together so well and never become overwhelming. Like any good management game, it's all about getting better stuff, so you can automate your basic systems, then automate those systems, and so on and so forth. At first, you're scrounging for berry seeds to put together meager meals for your cult, but 6 hours later, you've got an industrial farm complete with fertilizer and irrigation automation. You'll construct housing for your followers, decorations to brighten the place up, and lots of idols to increase the amount of faith you're collecting each day. All of these systems lead directly into leveling up your lamb. Each day, you can host 1 sermon, which feeds skill points into a tree that increases your attack power while increasing loyalty. You can also declare a new doctrine if you have enough tablets, which are gained by doing nice things for your followers. They'll age and die, and you'll find new ones over time and restart the cycle. New doctrines can either be passive buffs for your camp or active rituals that can be cast with a 2-day cooldown. Roughly half these doctrines aid you in leading by way of love, and the other half by way of fear, so you can definitely choose what kind of cult you would like to run. I only picked the love-based doctrines because I am a merciful godlamb and would bestow my grace upon this flock, but you can go full dictator on it if you wish. One of the best parts of Cult of the Lamb is that you can name and customize your followers, so, like most everyone, I named them after my real-life friends and asked everyone which animal and what color they'd like to be. Everyone had a good time watching their antics as one friend would report another as a traitor, or when two of my friends who barely know each other fell in love, or when one of them showed up at camp covered in blood and just died without explanation. There are certainly other games where you can name characters, but the concept of the social interactions takes the interesting part of Miitopia and Tomodachi life and puts it into a good game instead. Now, it's time to talk about the mediocre part of it, the roguelike action stuff. At the beginning of each run, you're given a weapon and a curse, which is a magic spell. Defeating enemies gains fervor, which is in turn used to cast spells. Simple enough. You'll unlock tarot cards that give small buffs, like turning your weapons to poison or raising your crit chance, and collect a different assortment on each run. And that's it. The color palette changes between the 4 biomes, and there's a few monsters that are unique to each, but they all effectively do the same thing. As I was spending just a few minutes at a time in combat before heading back to the farm, it didn't hit me until about 7 or 8 hours in that the combat had not changed. The way that it feels at the beginning is the way that it will feel in hour 14, just with new, mostly worse, weapons, and upgraded versions of the same spells. The combat is smooth, quick, and certainly eye-catching, but without any additional layers, it grows boring after a time. This leads to my next, much bigger issue: progression. The management sim in this game was not designed with me in mind, who put 20 hours into Factorio over just 2 days, and who builds large-scale automated mining operations in Minecraft for fun. As I normally would with a game in this genre, I optimized my followers and automated them, then automated the automations, and so on. I ran a sermon every day, ran as many rituals as possible, upgraded my warship speeds right at the beginning to accrue faster over the life of the game, and talked to every follower to inspire them every single day and extort resources from them. I also mostly ignored the side quests because mathematically, the amount of loyalty you lose for accepting and then not doing them can easily be made up with a single ritual the next day. There's a saying that if given a chance, players will optimize the fun out of a game. Well, I did it. And I did it barely halfway through. As I was early on in the 3rd biome, I completed the Doctrine Tree, the Sermon Tree, the Fishing Quests, the Mushroom Quests, and everything useful in the Camp Tree. What this resulted in was no progress for the last 5 hours of the game. I had already finished everything the game had to offer, so the next few hours were just maintaining my camp for no reward and outputting resources that would never be used. It slammed to a crashing halt. There is a difficulty modifier for combat, but god, I wish there had been a hard mode for the management part of it. I never struggled with collecting enough of anything, and if I didn't have enough resources, my automated systems would have it ready for me in just minutes regardless. Perhaps I got too eager, but as a fanatic lover of management games and city builders, this was hugely disappointing. Imagine playing Fallout and hitting a level cap halfway through the main story and having to continue without even the small reward of simply leveling up. Another issue that really put a damper on my experience was the requirement to have 20 living followers to fight the final boss. The 2nd biome required me to have 9 to enter, the 3rd required me to have 10, and the 4th required me to have 12. However, to face the final boss, I needed to find 8 more. This was such a strange ramp-up in requirements I did not expect. In addition, one of the features of the 4th biome is that your followers are summoned and possessed, and you must kill them to progress, so right after losing 4 followers in this way, I was presented with a gate telling me to find 8 more to proceed. It's not actually all that simple. You can buy 1 follower a day from a spider nearby, but you cannot just fast forward through the days and buy them because your followers will continue to age and die. Rather, I had to basically speedrun 4 more runs, hoping that my current elderly followers wouldn't drop dead any second so I could grind out more cultists. It was not fun in the least. While narratively satisfying, the final boss was also a disappointing fight that lacked a single new combat element. The first 8 hours of Cult of the Lamb were magical, and if the game had ended somewhere there, this review score would have been a 10. But it doesn't, and it goes on and gets less and less interesting as it reaches the conclusion. With progression systems that are way too easy to bust and combat that goes stale halfway through, my time with this game did not sustain the high I felt at the beginning. But there are strokes of a masterpiece in here, with excellent music, whimsical characters, starkly themed visuals, just enough narrative push, and management tools that allow for the player to really experience their own story. If you don't optimize the fun out of Cult of the Lamb, there's an incredible amount of it to be had. 8 out of 10. Radiant. Nirav recommends Cult of the Lamb.